Coming to you from sunny California and the Great White North. Get ready. We are breaking down the obstacles on the Armchair Ninja Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Armchair Ninja Podcast. It is Thursday, December 22nd, 2016. My name is Rich, and joining me for the finale of Team Ninja Warrior College Madness is Bijan. How you making out?
Oh, yeah. I'm doing good, man. It was an amazing finale. I must say, like, it was hit or miss with the season, but man, this finale came home really strong.
Yeah, last two episodes were great. The one before it was good, and this one was fantastic. Mm-hmm. No complaints. I think they wrapped up the season perfectly. Nice little, we didn't get the Cinderella story we were kind of looking for, but it was a great matchup.
Dude, it was so close, though. I mean, I can't complain one way or the other. It was, both teams deserve all the credit in the world. And I like the fact that they hyped both teams up. It wasn't just like they only showed Wisconsin all they love. They really showed a lot of love to MIT as well. So big props to just all around, you know, it was great.
Yeah, so for people that haven't been listening, we are going to be covering the Team Ninja Warrior College Madness finale. So the season is over. We're talking about the National Ninja League and some ninja news just from around the country.
Mm-hmm. National Ninja League was good this week too. So
yeah,
just all around good stuff, guys.
Yeah, it's a good week for Ninja. So getting into it here. So we had for the finale, we had UCLA versus University of Georgia, MIT, and UCLA. Those are the final four teams.
Poor Georgia. They might as well have not even been in this episode, man.
Yeah, I forgot about them, and then as soon as they started coming up, it's like, oh yeah, these guys. Doug, basically the team of just Doug.
Yeah, the team with the really jacked cheerleader. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. God, he's big. I still can't get over it.
It's ridiculous. But honestly, that's all I remember from the team.
So the first matchup, well, actually, let's talk about the course first. So the course, I thought there was going to be some bigger changes. We did get one. They switched out the pole grasper for the spin cycle. Did you think that was a good change?
I mean, I love the spin cycle, so I'm all about it. The pole grasper was good as well, though, so it's kind of like my favorite part of the course was switched out for another awesome obstacle, but I think there are other parts of the course that could have gone some upgrades as well. In particular, I forget the name of the obstacle, but the one that's kind of like replaced the dancing stones. I really think the dancing stones would have been, or some type of balance obstacle would have been better in that place.
Yeah, I think they should have upped the difficulty on them maybe. Like they should have taken out some of the pads so they had to use the bigger ones. They had to kind of come together a little more. I think that would have made it way better and more interesting for that obstacle.
They could have done many things to make that obstacle harder. They just... I mean, it's not that hard. I mean, everything's relative, right? I'm sure average Joe probably can't do it with ease. But with this level of competition, you need something harder.
Yeah, we didn't I mean, we're talking about the finale here. We're talking about some teams that are really good, and they could handle a little step up in difficulty, I think.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
But that being said, it was still a great episode and a great races all over the place.
So, Rich, before we get into the whole rundown, they showed what they're competing for, this buzzer prize thing. I don't know what to call it, but could they make any more phallic of an object? I couldn't be the only one that saw this thing. It's like, what were they thinking?
I don't know. It was a pretty lame duck trophy, I have to say. A bronze trophy at that. Why would you make it bronze? Like a golden buzzer maybe or something?
I couldn't even see anything other than a wide base with this long tube and a rounded tip buzzer. I was like, who thought of this? Who thought this was a good idea?
Yeah, I don't think it was the best trophy in the world, I have to admit. It's not something you're going to be displaying very proudly in your display case.
Your display case? Are you sure, man?
At a college, I'm thinking there might be some immature people there who might comment on it.
Well, as a college student, I can say I will very quickly comment on it, and I'm one of the the hardened veterans of college. You can just imagine some young freshman.
Yeah.
Oh God, the frat parties with that buzzer. You know what? That's another podcast. Let's get off this topic.
Yeah, moving on.
All right, moving on.
The first matchup was Georgia versus MIT, so we get to see MIT back in action. And I had forgotten they had a perfect record up to this point, and they kept it.
You did?
Yeah, I don't know how I forgot. I thought they had one loss for some reason.
Wisconsin and MIT both were perfect going into this.
Yeah, they still, like, they were just great. Like, there was nothing to complain about. Like,
yeah.
It seems kind of cliched to say it, but they had a cerebral approach to the course, right? Like, you'd see them really thinking it out. They had plans on... They didn't just attack the course and throw athleticism at it. They really thought about what had to be done, and every step of the way you could see they were planning ahead, and I just loved it.
Mm-hmm. Well, what was interesting is out of all the teams, the one team that actually came out with the most like individual stars was Team MIT. Amelia Becker, very well known at this point with her every run, she got up and hit that buzzer. She had that amazing story. Tomas, the amazing story of how fast and agile this guy is. He's like lightning, and the glasses just makes it perfect, you know? And Charlie Andrews, the amazing rock climbing and his upper body strength. So every single member of the team had this amazing story going into it, and they accentuated the story. They really told it really well. All the other teams obviously had members that had good stories, but MIT in particular, every member of the team was really pronounced, and I feel like going into the relay, the viewers at home really know who these people were and were very much rooting for them. I think all three members have a very bright future in this sport.
Yeah, I definitely will be watching for them. I had to say, I was a little worried in this one because going into the captain's race, I remember Doug Legg being really solid for Georgia. I thought, geez, can he beat Tomas twice? And oh my God, Tomas just absolutely flew through this course. I was absolutely floored. He had 34 seconds to do the whole course. He only took 5 seconds to do the spin cycle. The guy is insanely fast.
Dude's ridiculous, yeah. I love Tomas so much. He's so good.
So that was the first matchup. It wasn't a big surprise that they beat them. Like I said, I was a little worried because I remember Doug being really good, but he couldn't hold a candle to Tomas.
Mm-hmm. Once again, though, I love how awkward they are with the interviews. They are like a black hole of charisma in all the right ways. It's almost like cringeworthy, but you can't look away. It's so good.
But they're engaging. It may not be traditional. They may not be thinking like, man, those guys are so cool. I wish it could be like that. You're just like, oh, these guys are great. I just love watching them do everything.
It's adorable. That's the way I could put it.
Yeah. So then we get to see UCLA versus Wisconsin. I don't think we were too surprised at the result because Wisconsin was absolutely insanely good.
Mm-hmm. I got to give it up to UCLA, though. They put up a really good fight.
Yeah, they put up a good fight. I mean, what are you going to do? They're just so insanely good. Amanda versus Taylor was really good. They were like both onto the spin cycle at the same time. They were pretty neck and neck there because Taylor got hung up on the Ring of Fire, and it was the first time she was ever behind. And then they both missed the wall. I actually thought she was going to lose for a second, but she didn't. She did end up making it on the second chance, thankfully, so they could keep their perfect record.
Mm-hmm.
But Carter versus Zach, it was like, I don't think anyone could beat Zach. That guy is freaking insane. I almost wish that we could have seen Zach versus Tomas one-on-one. I think that would have been a fantastic race.
Yeah, that would have been fun. I mean, obviously, both of them are big fans of the sport. Zach, in many ways, knows the sport a little too much for this competition, some would say. But I think it would be fun. It's kind of like the agility versus the all-around competitor. So it would be fun. I really don't know who would win in that competition.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait for the next season if we get one.
Or American Ninja Warrior. Well, never mind. I mean, they won't be competing against each other, but you know,
we can still see.
Compare the times.
Yeah. So Wisconsin ends up beating UCLA, not a huge surprise. So that meant UCLA had to go up versus MIT next.
I was so excited. This was one of the matchups I really wanted to see, man.
Yeah, and it kind of made it clear right off the bat. We had Charlie versus James, and it was the closest call we've ever had on this show, or even the original. 0.01. They had to go to the electronic timer to figure out which one of them won.
Yeah, like typically in slow motion, you can kind of get a feel for who gets it. This one, I had no idea. I was like, that was so crazy. It was so fun, man. Like the entire run was just amazing. It was like a back and forth, just neck and neck the whole way, man.
Yeah, that was a great race. Absolutely loved it. But it did make me a little worried for MIT. I was like, oh, well, they're not flawless now. They did actually lose a match because James from UCLA ended up winning it, handing them their first loss. So then we had Amelia versus Amanda, and I knew Amanda was pretty solid, so I was waiting to see how that would turn out. She ended up doing the splits coming off the Ring of Fire and like a nasty... That was not the right way to come off of there.
I was really worried. I mean, you can very much tear your groin doing that. That was scary.
Yeah, I thought for sure she wasn't going to continue on after that. I thought, oh, geez, that looked like an injury.
It could have been, because she definitely looked different the rest of that race. You know, she did not look in her element. So I don't think she fully injured herself. Obviously, they would have shown that. But I have a feeling, you know, she was not feeling good, and she could have had some minor injuries with that.
Yeah, she ended up falling on the spin cycle.
Hard fall too. Oh.
Yeah, it just wasn't a good run for her, for sure. So it came down to Tomas versus Carter, and Carter missed the swing, and Tomas just went like his pants were on fire. Like, the guy, just insanely fast. Like
Speed demon.
Like I said from the last episode, and I'm glad they pointed out this time, because there is nobody that does a cargo net the way he does. That is insane.
Yeah. I was going to go into this with the relay of why they chose a certain placement, but the technique that he uses for the cargo net is quite interesting. One way that I do it, the transition jump from the rope to the cargo net is almost kind of reckless. I mean, he really scares me when he does that. Yeah. But I can't complain too much because he's never fallen on it. So until he does, I can't really complain too much, right? But not just that, the transition that he does while climbing down that rope is what's really the key to how well he does. And I don't think enough people see this. With anybody else, you're holding your body up with your forearms in front of you, kind of like you're doing a forearm grip, right? And you're kind of just slowly going down. He kind of like grips underwards, like he's throwing a baseball. I guess the best way to put it is he's throwing a baseball or a softball underarmed rather than overarmed. So he kind of grips downwards, grips it from the bottom, and drags his entire body like a good 3 feet downwards, rather than somebody that's inching it, maybe 6 inches, kind of just crawling down that net with your forearms above. And that is the true key to how well he does that. And I'm sure many people are seeing that little transition gap with the jump, but it's really the underarm climb that's really the key to it. And it's really cool to see.
Yeah, I could watch him do that all day. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Take notes, guys. Any Ninja Warriors, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, 33 seconds through that course. Like, it's just absolutely crazy pace. There's no catching that guy. Which actually was interesting because they noted that Amelia had the fastest time they had from a female all season, and Tomas had the fastest time they had from a male through the season. So,
well, they were definitely the anchors for that team. I mean, no, like I can't knock the other member of their team, but the two definite standouts were Amelia Beckert and Tomas. I think that's safe to say, right?
Yeah, that's fairly safe to say. But I would have thought that Taylor and Zack from Wisconsin actually were faster, but clearly they're not. You know, if you go just by the timer, Amelia and Tomas were actually faster than them.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't fully shocked by that because their technique was so flawless. Like when your technique is so much on point, the smallest mistakes will kind of get you. Taylor had problems with the ring slope. I forget its full name, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
she'd always get caught. Yeah, she'd always get caught. And Zack, while he was all around good and everything, he was never speed demon fast. You know, he was fast to a point, but he was never like, oh my god, how is this guy not out of breath, like flying through it? So that didn't really shock me.
He never really seemed to push himself. He never really was challenged to the point of need. Well, he did get challenged this time. Come to think of it, that's not entirely true because, oh my god, Doug Legg almost beat him in the next race. Let's actually move on to that one. Georgia versus Wisconsin. I did not see that part coming. I really didn't hold out much hope for Georgia. I have to say, you know what? We got down to Victoria a little bit from Georgia in the last episode, and I was kind of laughing at the prospect of her going up against Taylor, but she did really decent in this race. I was really impressed. I thought she made a really good effort. I mean, she didn't win in the end, but props to her. I think she did a pretty commendable job.
Yeah, she held her own. I have no complaints about any of the women in this competition, or actually any of the competitors, let alone. I mean, everybody definitely showed up with their best in mind. You know, nobody showed any weaknesses. They were all around good.
Yeah. This whole episode, there was not a single what I would call embarrassing slip-ups. The one, you know, somebody fell early, it was because they had to run at an insane pace trying to catch the person who was just going so fast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was, Carter when he was going against Tomas. I mean, you can't blame him for missing on the cargo net. He was just going like a lunatic trying to catch up to Tomas, who was running at such an insane pace. But yeah, so it wasn't too surprising to see Wisconsin continue their perfect streak, but then it ends up being Doug versus Zack, and Zack just barely beat him. Doug was behind coming up that wall, but he made up that time coming up over it. And there was only a .09 difference between them. Like, it was absolutely down to the wire again. We had like 3 buzzer beaters in this one.
3 of them, yeah. This episode was super close. The competition was insanely, I guess, really close to nitty gritty, you know. And that's what I liked about this episode. It wasn't a blowout. And, you know, some blowouts are fun, but sometimes it's really good to have that close competition, especially in the finals. It was good stuff.
Yeah, we didn't have any sudden death ones either, though. We didn't have any captains pulling through.
Yeah, you're right. You know what? I'm kind of glad about that. Nothing annoys me more than one member of a team kind of just getting their entire team down to the relay. That really annoys me.
No one really likes that, I don't think.
Yeah. So I'm all for it.
So in the end, we had, as predicted, Wisconsin versus MIT.
Mm-hmm. If there's one thing we can say, guys, is we are terrible at picking the teams that'll make it to the finals, but we are so good at predicting the finals. When we actually know the teams, we're good at that stuff.
Yeah, once we saw them all, it seemed pretty clear, right? I think we nailed it. You know, I think we spelled it out. We both were really rooting for MIT, but it seemed like Wisconsin had a leg up on them, and in the end, that's what we had. We had
Although
Wisconsin.
1/10 of a second, we would have been wrong, right? I mean,
yeah. Yeah, not from... wow, they just... Yeah, it was such a great race. Like, I can't even say it enough. They switched up the strategy, which was a perfect idea. The way that Tomas goes through that beginning part of the course.
You want Tomas. So I saw online some people questioning what was up with the placement of why they had Tomas at first. And I thought it was very obvious, but I'm sure everybody knows. But just to keep it very brief and short, Tomas is so incredibly fast at the beginning of the course. You want him for that transition with the rope swing and the ring of fire. He is absolutely picture perfect with that. And then Amelia Beckert is kind of like neck and neck. She's almost the same with Tomas when it comes to that second portion of the course. You know, she's shown that she's flawless on both the ring swing and the warped wall. So why not have her do that portion? Let Tomas get that huge gap, lead, and then have Charlie just, you know, finish up the race. I mean, I thought that was absolutely perfect. And also Wisconsin, they played to their strengths as well. So I thought this was actually perfect.
Yeah, no criticism on either of their layouts. I think it made more sense where each of them was. So, I mean, really, it was just really interesting because you had that immediate disconnect, right? You have Taylor versus Tomas at the beginning, and he just absolutely flies, as we've said over and over again here. At least I've definitely been saying it way too much this episode, but he gave them a huge lead, not because Taylor did anything wrong, but she just went at a human's pace.
I will say this. I'm curious about the editing with this, because they made it look like Taylor was really struggling at the beginning of this relay. But I don't know if it's her struggling or if it's them just showing little tidbits of her getting through the course relative to Tomas, because we didn't really see them them in the same frame at the same time very often. So I don't know how close it actually was with, you know, Taylor and Tomas. I have a feeling there was some tricky editing in there, and it was actually closer than the editing tried to make it be.
Yeah, it's possible.
Because that editing, man, it made it look like Taylor didn't know what she was doing.
Well, yeah, and then Amelia was doing fantastic through her second part of the course, and she was at the wall as Andrew was starting. So it was like a very big lead. And then we had Zack versus Charlie for the back half of the course, and Zack is just so good that he was able to make up that time and pass him on the Globe Grasper, and then they got into the final climb, and it was, man, it was right to the buzzer. Like, unbelievable.
Yeah, so do you credit Zack for doing so well, or do you kind of like put a hindrance on Charlie? What would you say? Do you think Charlie kind of screwed the pooch, or do you think Zack kind of just went, all out?
I think it's a little bit of a combination of both of them. I think it's mainly that Zack is just so good. I think he is kind of heads above most of the other competitors, mainly from experience, which you can kind of, as you alluded to, is it's a little iffy on being in the competition, but I think it's fine. I don't know. It is a little against the spirit of it, but it's certainly not against the rules. So I don't know. It is what it is, and maybe MIT will take it next year. They're already actively recruiting for next year
for College Ninja Warrior.
Yeah, it was actually Charlie that was recruited. In his little side video before their run, he was saying that he wants MIT to be known as the ninja school, and he's inviting other people to come to MIT and train for ninja with them.
Gotcha. I thought like there was actually already auditions and stuff. I'm like, what?
a little early
I
for
totally
that.
missed that. But yeah, it's really cool that MIT is definitely going to be known from this. I think even actually more than Wisconsin. I think the story coming out of this entire series is MIT even more than Wisconsin. But it's good that both are kind of elevated to that point. Wisconsin has a story of being the champions, while MIT is kind of like the people's champions in many ways. Kind of how we were saying while the series was going on. And as I think you said it perfectly. I think it came down to experience. I think Charlie was trying to figure out the ball graspers or whatever you call them, while Zack already knew what to do and kept those L's in perfect form. So I think that was a story of them going into the final portion of the relay. With the Zack controversy, I see it both ways. I think I would feel much more better about the Zack Kemmerer thing if there were other grad students and other people in their late 20s in this competition. He was the only person that was a veteran of Ninja Warrior. That's the part where it's kind of icky, where it's like Wisconsin really did win off the backs of Zack Kemmerer. All of the members were amazing, but when it came down to the nitty-gritty main points of them getting all the way, if you look back at it, it's Zack Kemmerer that did the final push every time. So I see it both ways. If anybody wants to give their own opinion on it, let us know. I always want to hear what everybody else feels about that. Yeah, overall, though, how do you feel about this entire season, man?
I thought it was great. I would have given it like a B grade, about halfway through the season. I was pretty happy with it. I was happy to have a Ninja Warrior show to watch at all. But I'd give it an A now. I actually thoroughly enjoyed the last 2 episodes. I have no complaints. I thought it was great, and it proved what it can be, and I'd like to see it kind of become more.
Nice. I'd give it a B+. I think there's definitely room for improvement, and I think that's more. It's less of College Ninja Warrior, but more of the formatting of Team Ninja Warrior. There's still a lot of the formatting issues that I have problems with. With that said, they did fix a lot of the things that have been the traditional problems. The one particular thing that I absolutely loved from this competition was the vignettes and them introducing new people. I think they have perfected how to introduce new people. It is absolutely the opposite of the Spartan show that we watch, which was just brutal to watch. Watching a bunch of people were like, I don't care about you, and you're telling me a story that I just couldn't care less about. This series was perfect with their vignettes, giving the right amount of time for every competitor and just introducing the main points for it. I thought that was absolutely flawless. So overall, great competition. I loved the people in it. It was good stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point about the vignettes. I think that is just the right amount. It gets you in, just enough to care, but not enough to be bored. I couldn't agree more. That is just what we need. A little blurb, move on. Let's just go.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on, we had the National Ninja League at the Movement Lab in New Jersey at what is probably the hardest course I think we've ever seen for the National Ninja League.
Dude, it was ridiculous. I mean, I love this is the thing. I love really hard courses. You know that. I think everybody knows that. The harder, the better, right? But man, when they are like, if anybody can complete the course, we'll give you double the prize. I was like, oh boy. And I think at the end, Chris even said that the furthest person, the guy who got the furthest, and if you want, I won't spoil, I guess, if you want, Rich.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it does. What do you call it? Drew Dressel gets the furthest. And I think the quote was, he didn't even get 50% of the way through that course.
Yeah.
Did I hear that right?
I did. I had to rewind it just to make sure I heard that right. Yeah. So I'll let you finish the thought. Go ahead.
I'm curious what they had at the very end of the course. Like what? They light you on fire or something? Like what's left?
If Drew can't even make it halfway through your course, do you think maybe you kind of tuned it up a little too much?
Oh man, dude, I am really curious what this entire course looked like.
Yeah, it was a little insane.
With that said, it was fun stuff. I mean, there were no obstacles that I looked at which I thought were unfair or ridiculous. I mean, it was just a combination of particular obstacles that are very good at draining certain body types or body parts. And I think this course was very upper body grip and forearm heavy. And I think they just kept at that to the point where the competitors just had nothing left.
And there was very little breaks. Like they had long sequences for them to do too on top of that. So It was just crazy. Even the first, they said like half the field went out. Oh, more than 50% of the field went out on the first obstacle. They actually had to change it, so each hold was a different obstacle for just to be able to judge how far people went.
Yeah, and I don't blame them. I mean, the beginning of this course, the first part, I mean, it looks so simplistic, but I've done all those. It is not as easy. Just the two nunchucks in general, so much harder than it looks. Some ninja obstacles, man. It's like everybody at home, armchair quarterbacking is just like, oh, why don't you do that? I'm like, please try it just one time. It's like, just hold on. Just try to hold your body up on that for 10 seconds. Just please. Like, it is so much harder than these guys make it look.
Well, that's why I appreciate your insight and Chris Wilczewski's for these videos because, he's pointing out like this purple nunchuck is, like twice as thick as the rest of them. Like, and that's a huge difference for their grip strength. So I appreciate getting that insight into, what it is that's taxing them and why they're having struggles at certain points. Why this person looks so comfortable going through it and the next person isn't. It's because their body control is better or they're using their momentum from this to carry them into the next. I think all of those things are great insights from Chris, and I highly I always link these for those that don't watch them regularly. I always link them in the show notes. So if you want to check them out, stop by ninjapodcast.com or go right to the National Ninja League YouTube channel and check it out. Chris does a great job of narrating them.
Yeah, he really does. And this video in particular is a really good video or example to show of obstacles where, I don't know, I think a lot of people watching American Ninja Warrior see obstacles and they're like, oh, I can do that obstacle. Why are they all failing? Without making necessarily the combination of it's all the obstacles together that makes it difficult. And I think this video in general really accentuates that.
So back to the video, we actually had in third place Candice Leach. Not a name I recognize. I don't know if she placed last year or not. Who ended up going out in the first obstacle, but as we mentioned, it is a killer obstacle.
Yeah. Well, why don't you describe the obstacle? We keep talking about it. I just realized, like, we
didn't
what we're
really
talking about.
It's like these, the ring holds and nunchucks in this, I don't know, you call it like a U shape, I guess. They have to go down one side and change direction to swing over to another one. They're able to push off the walls and stuff, which is pretty much vital for what they're trying to do. And what's interesting, you find out later in the video, is that they could choose to go in either direction. I don't think I've ever heard of that before, where they actually had the option of going one way or another or around something.
Yeah, I'm curious if they made that ruling later on in the competition, because it seems like the first people that fell out on it definitely were going the harder route, and then later on in the competition, the people that placed further all went the opposite route. So I'm guessing they saw a lot of people struggling in that harder route and made that ruling that you can go either way. Although I could be wrong. Who knows? With that said, I really like how this obstacle is made. It's a combination of various transition obstacles. You really have to be comfortable with your body placement and movement, really good control of your body. All around, it was very creative and good stuff. I have no complaints.
Really? I kind of do. I feel like if it's knocking out that many people, it's too hard. It's tuned up too much. I mean, appreciate it for what it is, but I think they just kind of tried to do too much too early for sure, right? I'd rather see people get a little further into the course. It's kind of sucky to see people going out on that first obstacle. I mean, I can't imagine like traveling from a long distance to compete in it and then going out early like that. It would be a little bit of a bummer.
It might not have been a perfect first obstacle. I mean, typically you want a first obstacle to be kind of in that way, right? But I do agree that it was very difficult. With that said, I don't think in the planning, who leads M Labs, do you know?
I think it's actually Chris.
Okay, so I'm guessing Chris might have been used to this type of obstacle. I don't really know how the planning goes for these obstacles, but typically with the ninja competitions I've seen, it's kind of accentuated by the head people of the gym and what their strengths are. So it might have been very easy to Chris Wilczewski, and he didn't really gauge properly how difficult these obstacles were for people that don't necessarily train with these transitions all that often. It could have been that.
Yeah, or what I think happens in a lot of these cases might be that as you're setting them up and you're doing them over and over again, you get better and better, so you kind of ramp up the difficulty as you go. So maybe, he might not be able to do it on his first try, but after he'd been setting it up for a while and doing it over and over again, it seemed too easy. So maybe he added an extra step or two as he went along each time, as he was kind of tweaking them, forgetting the fact that doing it on your first time is a lot harder than doing it after a lot of practice.
Yeah, because the story of this entire course from or the 50% that we saw, it was all about transitions. Every obstacle that there was, the true tough part was the transition to the next one, Yeah. Like right after that is a rope transition that's way too far, right? Where everybody's struggling to get to that next part. And then after that, there's a transition where there's two cannonballs really spread far apart, And the story goes on and on with these transitions. So that's kind of the key to this particular course. And you definitely saw a lot of ninjas struggling on that.
Yeah, so after Candace, we actually saw Jane G. We don't get her last name. So Jane made it past the first obstacle and over to this cargo net. She was a little tentative in trying to do this, going up these ascending steps into a rope swing, which was another story we saw. Like you said, the transitions were really hard. So she was kind of getting stuck in no man's land for a bit, but did manage to make it over to this cargo net. But then she had to climb the cargo net and transition to this ball hold. That she ended up going out on trying to do that, which is basically what we saw the first place competitor, Jessie Lebrecht, do something very similar, ended up going to that same place. She did actually make that first transition, but the second one to the next ball is where she ended up falling.
Yeah. I was actually surprised Jessie Lebrecht fell in that part because she's so good and well known for her grip strength and everything, but I think it's a testament to just how difficult the first part of this course was.
Yeah, 100%. So then we went to the men, and third place was Jamie Ron. And then we get to see exactly how ridiculous this course was, because he went considerably further through. I can't even list everything. It was just nuts. They were swinging, jumping to walls, and I can't even give the words to describe it. But John, do you want to give us some idea of some of these things that we saw in this video?
It was Tarzan's playhouse. That's the best way I can put it. I mean, just imagine Tarzan and everything Tarzan would play with. That was this. It was all transitions. Chris Wilczewski has a background in free running, and this course is kind of like a mishmash of Ninja Warrior obstacles with free running and some rock climbing mixed in, which to a layman's way, most people would be like, well, that's Ninja Warrior, right? But when you look at it, you kind of get a feel for what I'm talking about. I mean, there's a lot of obstacles that are specific to, free running. And there are a lot of obstacles that are absolutely specific to rock climbing. So, you know, you kind of need to have a well-roundedness. That's why I think Drew Dressel did so well, because Drew Dressel, like Chris Olszewski, has a deep background in free running that went into Ninja Warrior training. And I think this course was, a little geared towards those specific types of skilled competitors. With that said, you want to know some examples of the obstacles. I mean, I don't know. They you know, sliding ropes, you know, blah, blah, blah. A lot of things hanging from ropes and, you know, kip-ups, stuff like that. You had to do a lot of very specific type of free-running obstacle things that you typically don't see at ninja gyms. I mean, it's a mixed match between very specific free-running and very specific Ninja Warrior. I don't know.
Yeah, what would he call it? A Kong jump over this? I've never heard it called that before. Basically jumping.
Oh, you will if you watch Jump City Seattle.
Oh, is that?
Which you will eventually.
Well, there we go. There we go. So that's another free running type thing, I take it.
I can't wait for you to see like a 20-year-old Drew Dressel and a teenage teenage Flip Rodriguez. Oh my God, it is something to see, guys.
It's funny because I stumbled across Jump City Seattle the other day when I was looking online for something. I was like, I still have to watch that. That might be what we'll do next. We'll have to...
Oh, it is. I'm calling it. We have to.
Yeah, so we've got a little break before Team Ninja Warrior, before the main one comes. So, yeah, maybe that's something we'll take a look at.
Oh, the nostalgia.
So, yeah. So, Jamie Ron ended up going out there. In second place, we had Joe Meisner, who is probably the most relaxed I've ever seen anyone on any obstacle, just floating through this beginning part of the course.
He wasn't in pain. I was like, how are you not hurting, dude?
He looked like he was taking a break as he went through, just like, da-da-da-da.
I don't get it. Like, the lactic acid build, just the way he was holding it, like, he is fully dead hanging, you know? And he just looks like he's chilling. I don't understand it. I would be in so much pain at that point.
Yeah, he was fantastic through that. He was slow, absolutely very, very slow, but so relaxed and so smooth. It was like
almost looked like he was bored, you know?
Yeah, it was amazing after watching all of these top competitors struggling through that part, and to see him just kind of drifting through it like it was nothing. It was great. And then first place, as soon as I saw Drew's face, it was like, oh boy, maybe someone actually will finish this course. But he went out in the same place that Joe did on the double salmon ladder. He made a little further, but he basically
not much.
Not much. No, not a big difference. He looked pretty confident through most of it. He didn't look quite as bored as Joe did at the beginning, but he looked very solid through most of the course, even these crazy obstacles they had. Yeah, I don't know what to say about Drew. He's always just...
His grip gave out, you know? He was very flawless technically and everything. It was absolutely sound, but his grip strength gave out. I mean, it was a combination of so many obstacles that tags and wear your grip strength, leading into this salmon ladder where you have to do that transition over. And that transition, all of your weight and all the gravity and everything's going right on your grip strength. And it gave out, and I don't blame him for anything. But what's... in my opinion, the biggest thing is that he didn't even make it halfway. So I have no idea what was in store for this entire course. I really want to see Chris Olszewski, the master who made this course, do the entire thing, just to see what he had in store for the later parts.
That should be a requirement before you set up these courses, right? Like, demonstrate it for us all.
Yep.
So that was it for the National Ninja League. We've got a few of these left. Thankfully, actually, we'll stretch them out over the next few weeks. We'll have one to talk about. There's still a few more to go. But we will get to them, so I'm sorry for those of you that are actually from those competitions. We will get to you. We're not skipping any. We're just a couple weeks behind. Yeah, we'll get caught up.
Eventually, yeah, sure.
So some ninja news from around the country. Esquire is actually having a 7-day ninja-thon from December 26th through January 2nd. So it was like 24/7 ninja. Includes Team Ninja Warrior, Team Ninja Warrior College Madness, American Ninja Warrior, and Old School Ninja Warrior Sasuke. So all the ninja you could possibly want through the holidays. That's pretty cool.
For those that actually get it, I mean, AT&T and DirecTV just dropped out with Esquire. I think that's even a bigger story. I mean, it's not necessarily a happy story, but it's a big thing that two of the biggest... cable providers in the U.S. dropped Esquire, which means I forgot the number, but something like 15 million to even more don't have Esquire now, and my family was one of them. So it's going to be interesting to see how Esquire combats that and it kind of puts in jeopardy a lot of the lower, the other types of competitions like Team Ninja Warrior and College Ninja Warrior, stuff like that, that's specific to Esquire Network. I just don't know how much budget NBC will give Esquire now that they don't have as much of a platform.
You're such a killjoy. It is the holiday season. I'm trying to spread some cheer.
I know, man.
It's ninja
but it's the
season.
Truth.
Don't spread the unfortunate truth of the fact that Esquire's not looking so good right now, unfortunately.
Everything's doom and gloom.
Not everything. Not quite everything. We have the ANW9 submission deadline coming up. So
yes.
That's exciting to think that everybody out there is submitting those tapes now.
Get it in, guys.
That's how close, like, it feels weird to be doing that now, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. It's strange, but I have a feeling most people probably had their videos already ready to go, like, in September, just waiting to publish it. I from what I understand, they said, like, producers say most of the people that submit them, that get like chosen, submit within the first 2 weeks. With that said, they still choose people late in the thing. So if you're one of the people holding out, put it in now, get that chance in. If you really stand out, they will choose you.
So Bijan, you got yours in yet?
Nope. A lot of things came up where I didn't have enough chances to go to Ninja Gyms where I can get the video footage that I absolutely wanted to get. I have a lot of video footage of me doing, obstacle course races and stuff, but not necessarily ninja stuff. Maybe next year.
I know that when you might only have one shot, so I know you want to put your best foot forward, and you didn't really have the time to prepare this year, so that's understandable.
I mean, unless they want to see me do salmon ladders and stuff, where I was like, I've seen that a million times. I mean, it's I don't have anything necessarily all that cool right now. With that said, this year in particular, I'm focusing I'm weaning off of Spartan races. I'm going to be become a 5-time Tough Mudder Legionnaire, and my big thing is I am going to hike the tallest mountain in mainland America. So, fun times.
Nice. We'll definitely be looking for updates on that and see how you're making out.
Yeah,
so the submission deadline is January 2nd. So if you are planning on being on the next season, make sure you have your video in before then.
Get it in, guys.
So that is it for this week's episode. Thank you all for tuning in. We will continue in our off-season coverage. Now that Team Ninja Warrior College Madness is done, we will be looking at Jump City, Seattle. I expect us to probably check out Koinichi. That was a all-female version of Ninja Warrior that was out there.
Ooh, fun.
So if you have other suggestions for us, by all means, let us know. You can reach me at rich@ninjapodcast.com or at ninjapodcast on Twitter or Instagram. And Bijan, how can they reach you?
Hit me up at Twitter and Instagram at Bijan151. That is Bijan 151.
So once again, thank you all for listening, and I hope you all have a very Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays, guys.